Would it be beyond growth or putting a price of nature? It lies on economic theories and approach, right? So what's your view? What can you tell us about on which economical view this relies?
Thank you, and I'm very glad to be here. So let me start by saying in 1952, the second European President of the Parliament said that Europe, to be united, needed to deconstruct things. And I think there's a lot that I've heard in the last 48 hours or so that needs deconstructing. So let's start by a few comments like a precursor to blow away a few myths about markets. Let me start by saying markets are not efficient. Market prices do not reflect resource scarcity. There is no such thing as a true price. There is no such thing as getting the prices right. This is the kind of rhetoric you hear all the time. We're going to get the prices right, right? Markets are going to work. Markets, there is no such thing as the market. There are different types of markets. They are institutions. They are created and they are regulated, right? In order to set up a market, you have to have regulation. You have to have private property rights. You have to decide what constitutes a commodity, what is in the market and what is out of the market, right? Do we have slaves in the market anymore? No, right? But this is the point. Okay, what about women? Are women in the market or are they out of the market? We have economic feminists who are telling us that there's unpaid labour, right? But do we want all the labour to be paid and made into part of the market? It's the same issue that we have with the environment. The point is that once you look at what markets are, how they're constructed and they're institutionalised, what you realise is that markets are institutions of power and power relationships. What gets included in the market and what gets excluded from the market is about the power of different players in the marketplace and in the society. So much is made of, for example, of there being subsidies. There's much talk, even the World Bank does this, that there are subsidies that are being paid and we should get rid of subsidies so markets would operate efficiently. Everything is subsidized. Look at the infrastructure. When you build infrastructure, you are allowing certain things to happen. If you build roads, then you allow cars. If you build airports, you allow planes. These things are built by governments, they are subsidized, and they help you to create certain types of markets, right? They're supported. But look at earlier today we had Olivier Lazard raising the geopolitical issues, right? If you look at growth and you look at the militarized society that we live in, then you will find that growth correlates with militarization. And it's not just China and Russia, like she said. It's also the United States. It's also the United States free market system depends on the largest military in the world. It's also British colonialism. There was a British Empire, there was a French Empire, there was a German Empire, there were the Dutch. So all of this means that supply chains are created, securitized and backed by military. That means they're all subsidized. So now I'll get to my speech. Okay. What we have is missing markets, right? So what's the economic explanation for why we need these interventions, why we have to go around pricing things? Well, Lord Stern, after his attempts at cost-benefit analysis on climate change, claims that the climate change is the largest market failure ever, right? But not in the sense that capitalism is fundamentally flawed as a structure or it's a disaster socially and ecologically. No, it's a failure that can be corrected by intervention to get the prices right. So he actually has reports, right, supported by Michael Jacobs, who was here yesterday, who famously goes around saying that this was a great thing that he did, a report that says better growth, better climate, right? Just think about it. Then we have Dasgupta, right? The Dasgupta review that came out recently on biodiversity. What's Dasgupta's take? Oh, well, he wants to turn nature into capital. So why would you turn nature into capital? So you can get a rate of return on it. You can treat it like a financial asset, like any other financial asset. So natural capital markets does. We heard earlier today, right, the Commissioner for Environment, Oceans and Fisheries was telling us that natural capital is the policy that the European community is pushing, the Commission is pushing, and that we're going to get the accounting prices right. This is Das Gupta's terminology. Get the accounting prices right. Take things into account. Okay, so underlying this is what we call externality theory. Well, I don't. I call it cost shifting. But that's what the mainstream economists call it, right? So rather than talking about externalities, we should talk about the way the system actually purposefully pushes costs onto others. That's how you make money in the system, right? So internalizing externalities is meant to be the solution. How do you do that, right? So we're told by the mainstream economists that what we can do is we can do cost-benefit analysis. We can include the values that we were just told about, right? So if something doesn't have a price, it doesn't have a value. Bullshit, right? Of course we value nature. We just don't value it in money terms. So they get the claims that, carbon can be priced, we can price all the pollution, we can get all the damages priced, and what do we mean when we say cost? What do we mean when we say things like, oh, it's not about the price, it's about the cost? What you mean is, you mean dead people. We mean climate change, drowning people and then dying. We mean health impacts. We mean biodiversity destruction. This is the costs, right? So how are these things going to be valued? Okay? How is it going to be valued? Well, the way you go about it is you set up pseudo-markets. The most common technique is called contingent valuation or stated preference methods. And that basically goes out and conducts surveys and you ask individuals what is their maximum willingness to pay for X, right? For a tiger, for an elephant, for some more wetland. For what? For all sorts of things, right? And so if we're going to start including all aspects of these biodiversity into the marketplace, then we've got to put a price on everything. So how much are you going to pay for another spider, a rat, a microorganism? Why should we even be doing this? Why would we be appealing to individual people's preferences and their willingness to pay? People clearly do not have preferences about microorganisms and rats, right? So this is really problematic. What are you doing here? You're confusing the whole understanding of ecology, which is about the integrity of ecosystems. And people do not value the integrity of ecosystems, right? With preferences. What you're doing is you're starting to treat the nature like a flavor of ice cream. People have preferences over ice cream flavors, strawberry or chocolate. Oh, I don't know. Well, but biodiversity, tigers, lions, whatever. This is going. When you actually go out there and you ask people in surveys what they value, well, what do they value? They like lions and tigers. They like pandas. That's why the WWF has a panda logo, right? What they don't like then is not valued. Now, if you seriously go down this route, what will you do? You will end up with the selective extinction of unattractive species. And this is not a joke, right? This is happening because zoos have changed the way that they actually preserve species on the basis of consumer preferences of visitors to zoos. So unattractive snake species are no longer preserved in the zoos, right? This is really happening. This is what markets do. Okay, so we're appealing to preferences here. Now, just to so that my French colleagues understand what I'm saying here, valorisation monétaire n'est rien d'autre que sortir un lapin d'un chapeau. Okay, so we're misconceptualizing values. Values are being misconceptualized. Markets aren't just going out there and imposing monetary values. They actually have impacts on the way people think about things. They're transformative of values as well. So, for example, if you pay for sex, it's prostitution. It's not love. Okay, you go into a different relationship. If you think you can buy friends, you do not understand the concept of friendship. Okay? These are fundamentally different things. But also what markets do when you go down this route of putting monetization into everything is you start equating harm and good. And this is the core aspect of the offsets markets. This is what they're doing. They're trying to equate harm, damages, destruction with what they regard as good, which is increased profits, money, and so on. So this is a real problem, right? So if you put up offset markets, what you're doing is you're doing what's called commensuration. You're making things measurable and equating them so they become equivalent to each other. And the more you can do that, the bigger the market you can get. That's what the offset markets want. They want to create commensuration and make it as wide as possible so they can have very big markets, right? Things are equated here. So, you destroy a wetland over here, then you want to replace it, like Fred said, with a totally different ecosystem, then you've got a bigger market. So this then leads me to understanding a little bit about the types of values we're talking. Let me just give you a little example. Zsa Zsa Gabor lived to 99, right? Famous actress. When she was asked what her greatest achievement was by a reporter, she said, "I found a way to keep my husband young and healthy." "Wow," says the reporter, "how do you do that?" "I get a new one every 5 years." Zsa Zsa Gabor had 9 husbands, by the way. But the point here is that what is Zsa Zsa Gabor saying? What's she valuing? Right? She's not valuing the specific. She's not valuing the husband. She's valuing a category that fulfills a certain end. And this is exactly what we see when we move into this kind of approaches of ecosystem services, is that it's a general thing. So environmental examples. So in human geography, people talk about sense of place, having a sense of place. All of us grew up somewhere. We have an understanding of certain environments, places that we love, places that we have lived in, and we understand there was nature there were animals there were trees and plants there. You destroy that, you take away emotion and history from people. You cannot replace that. So this is about having a sense of place and valuing something which is specific, not general. So a purely general evaluation of biodiversity, the constituents are not valued as particular objects, but for the properties they possess that enable them to deliver relevant services, like Zsa Zsa Gabor's husbands. It's an end state view of nature. So what you've got now is what matters is only the state of biodiversity or ecosystems in as far as they affect the delivery of ecosystem services. They can be knocked out. Two things can provide the same end state, then you can just substitute them. You can get rid of them. So it's a very generalized way of valuing. It's not about the specific, and it misses out on all sorts of aspects of value. So what we have then is public policy implications of all of this. The basic aim is to push nature into capitalist markets, right? Nature-based solutions, as has been mentioned, and was mentioned in the plenary this morning. I was the only one who booed, actually. People were clapping. But nature-based solutions is, as Fred said, is about offsetting and offset markets. It's highly problematic. Nature is becoming capital, right? When it's like the Dasgupta review, making nature into capital means you're expecting a rate of return in money values. Ecosystems becoming services, giving a benefit to humans measured in money terms in that generalized sense. What is this for? To justify the claim that investment can be made optimally in a capitalist market economy, a social market economy, and to hide the role of planning and the creation of institutions that is essentially part of what you get when you look at the social provisioning. Okay. Basically, I'm just going to finish, right? The last point. All the prices are wrong, right? All the prices are wrong. Pricing and internalizing everything to get the markets to work means that you have to price every single atom of carbon, for example, in your carbon market if you want it to be efficient. Otherwise, what you don't price is left out. What about, as I mentioned earlier, female labour? How much of that is going to be included or not included? Which species are we going to value? If you can't value them in monetary terms and measure them and put them into money terms, they're left out. What's in the market and what's out of the market? Whatever you do, it means that you've changed the prices in the market. So the prices in the market are dependent upon what's planned to be in the market and what's out of the market. That means that the prices change whenever you change the institutions. All the prices are wrong. There is no such thing as the right price. So what does that mean? It means that whether you plan the prices explicitly or not, whatever's in and out is going to be relative to your institutional structures. And what this means is that we live in a planned economy. There is no such thing as a free market. All economies are planned. So, if we have a planned economy, then why don't we explicitly plan it? Why do we have to create these markets and these pseudo-markets and these pseudo-prices? What we should be doing is actually planning the market straight. What we do not need is a social market economy, as van der Leyden was promoting. What we do need is a full variety of social ecological economies. Thank you.
Okay, so now Dr. Vandana Shiva.